Hey guys, it's Vosh here. Today, we're going to talk about why if you want to smash the state, you need to vote for Bernie Sanders and horse penis. Okay. Why the fuck am I so white? Fuck. Anyways, before we get started here, you can tell I got some new shit. There we go. Sorry about that. I got some new shit. This is a Blue Yeti, and then this is a Chinese webcam that's quite good, except it just makes me look like a snowman, like a ghost. But other than that, I'm actually very surprised by the quality of this webcam. It was like $50 Canadian. Anyways, so I just figured, it's a good investment to this channel. It'd be good to get, improve the audio quality. I hope I sound good. I haven't really configured with the microphone yet, so there's probably some stuff I can do, but it just seems like it's working. So, and this here is the old classic mic. This is what started it all, really. This is this is how everything was made. It's a good mic, but it just has too much like static, and it picks up too much background noise. I can already tell by I haven't even done any configuration with this microphone, and I can already tell that the background noise is not as bad. It's not really picking up any noise as much as this one did. This one was a pain in the ass to work with. I'd have to turn off everything in this, the mini fridge. I had to turn off to do recordings. I had to turn off the fan. It would just have to be dead silence in the house if I were to record a video with this. There was one time, because the mini fridge is so fucking loud, it was for the sex worker video. I unplugged it to turn it off so it wouldn't make noise, and then I had a whole bunch of fucking meat in there because I was on keto at the time. I was doing just one last round of keto because why the hell not? Sounds like I'm saying I'm doing chemotherapy, but I had a whole bunch of meat in that fridge, and it all just fucking spoiled, because I had to record that video. So that video was expensive. That cost me a lot of gains. I'll say that. But I want to say, this mic, this is the mic that started it all right here. It can be yours, just for a measly $100 Canadian. This isn't just any mic. This is the Tru-Dank mic. I'll even sign it. I'll do any other special request. Just for a measly, nothing too special, but you know what I mean. Whatever other, if you want me to autograph it, whatever. Just for a measly $100 Canadian. That's about $70 US. That is $70 US actually. And this is the Tru-Dank mic. This started it all. If all goes according to plan, this will be worth. Well, actually, if everything goes according to plan, it'll be worth nothing. But if things don't go according to plan, this will be worth millions of dollars in the future. I promise you. So just DM me if you want this. DM me on Discord, and we'll set something up. So naturally, I thought, as a follow-up to my last video, which was a dunk on electoral socialists, that I would make this in light of Super Tuesday with Bernie Sanders. I immediately got the idea for this when I was watching at the gym that the TV was displaying. the Super Tuesday primaries, and I saw that at one point Bernie was losing 2-7, and I'm like, okay, I need to make this video. I actually had like some optimism then. I was like, well, this is kind of early on, and things might pick up. They did for Bernie, but not by much. I mean, theoretically, can Bernie still win the nomination? Sure. But I remember when I was a Bernie bro back in 2016, Bernie was in a similar position with Hillary where, he was trailing behind her, but by, not by too much. And I think it was by more than now. So, I'm not going to fall for that again. And I'm sort of glad to be a, Marxist, accelerationist, impossibilist, even though we're not very well liked, because I guess, we're kind of our assholes at the end of the day, but I'm glad to not be so, have these illusions of reformist change. Where was I going with this? I forget. I also remember on Monday when Pete Buttigieg dropped out, right before Super Tuesday. I knew exactly what that meant. Essentially, the Democratic establishment had decided that Joe Biden would be their front runner as the anti-Stop Sanders candidate, and so they sort of probably met somewhere. There was probably some meetings where it was decided that it would be ultimately better for the party establishment for Pete Buttigieg to drop out and for Biden to be their front runner. And what was interesting is that also this has been noted that Elizabeth Warren didn't drop out, who was probably other than Tulsi Gabbard and I guess maybe Andrew Yang is the closest politically to Bernie Sanders, although she's just sort of she's still very much establishment, and so is Sanders' establishment. But I'm going by Bernie bro terms here, but I'm not going by reality. Reality is that they're both establishment. It's just that Bernie is of the parliamentary socialist establishment. Not even a socialist. He's just basically he's barely a social democrat, I would say. In some ways he's more of a social liberal, but anyways, what I want to know is, when will possibilists, reformist socialists, admit that the failure of the electoral left isn't an isolated event, and rather this is sort of part of a structural condition? I mean, people, when I made my video on Jeremy Corbyn saying listen, the electoral strategy doesn't work. I also made a greater critique of democracy, which was people had misconceived views of what that meant, which I'll get into later. But ultimately, there were people saying, well, no, I think it was because of their inability to adopt the Lexit stance, and a whole other numerous things. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what, that's kind of reasonable. But I think now, the way Super Tuesday has went, and the way I think this Democratic primary is going to go, and how the presidency will ultimately go, if even Bernie Sanders does secure the nomination, will he be able to beat Trump? I'm not sure. I think that the rhetoric from the Kulinski crowd that Sanders is going to decimate Trump is just hopeful thinking. But ultimately, the failure of the electoral left is clearly part of some sort of structural condition, and it's not just a bunch of isolated cases. And so, reformism doesn't work. And here's what's actually just amazing with the Bernie socialists in contrast. that, like, just think of, like, the position of a socialist who supports, like, just like, in Vosch's mind, right? Vosch is the perfect example of, like, a Bernie socialist. You're trying to reform a movement, the Sanders campaign, a social democratic movement, which is trying to reform a party in the aims of reforming the country. That's 3 levels of reformism. And the thing is, the Bernie socialists are like, they're just market socialists. So if you're like a some sort of Marxian, non-market socialist, and you're a Bernie socialist, now you're engaging in 4 levels of reformism, because you now have to reform the market socialists who are trying to reform the social democrats who are trying to reform the Democrats who are trying to in the aim of reforming the country. at least like, at that point, just fucking, you might as well just campaign for the Socialist Party or even the fucking Greens. At least Corbyn was part of the Fabian tradition, and Labour still has remnants of its socialist tradition. The Democratic Party has no such thing. Again, this video is really just a flex. This is literally this is just a flex video. But I have with me here a collection of books from my personal collection, which argue against possibilism and reformist socialism, which, just for the purpose of educating possibilists, I think it is important to show off. So first of all, there's this one. This guy, you might know him. Maybe you can't probably read that because of the webcam. I have to correct that. It's angles. This one's a classic. There's obviously this one, not as well known. And there's this one if you want to be really epic. And then of course there's this, which is kind of cool, I guess. Now, to end with, I think it's good to go to the misconceptions of my last video regarding my sort of skepticism and criticisms of democracy, which actually my I guess democratic, like, skepticism of democracy was applicable to democracy as a political concept entirely. But it was very much misconceived, originally just by the Sev, which isn't surprising. Basically, I've also seen, like, Marxist-Leninists types with the same misconception that I was arguing for some sort of autocracy or some sort of hegemonic bureaucracy or something, which is, if you've watched my videos, you would know that's kind of my whole, like, criticism about, like, 20th century socialism. It was more actually from a libertarian socialist standpoint. Basically that, like, democracy, there's aspects of democracy that are useful for political organization, there's no doubt, voting, sortition, etc. But the fetishization of democracy as a principle really doesn't have much to do with socialism. For example, like, Sev and that crowd brought up Marx's writings on the Paris Commune, the Civil War in France. And while he did praise democracy, he praised democracy because it was a more progressive force than what had existed in the Republic. In reality, Marx's own political organization principles were, they were a mix of, they were between, like, Blanqui and Proudhon. Blanqui being sort of the very elitist, centralizing kind of guy, very much believed not only the dictatorship of the proletariat, but specifically a dictatorship of the proletariat led by this sort of, like, elite vanguard of intellectuals, more vanguardists than even Lenin. Proudhon, on the other hand, sort of represents like the exact opposite. This entirely decentralized, federated system. Marx, on political organization, was sort of he synthesized the two. Basically, a centralized federation of like workers' organizations. That's what you can gather from what Marx believed how socialism should be organized. Now, the other argument came from the Sev crowd had was De Leon, because obviously he used democratic rhetoric quite openly, and they sort of like, well, you're a De Leonist, they said like, oh, you're supposed to be a De Leonist, and he used democratic rhetoric all the time, and then he was like, oh no, I don't think he's actually a De Leonist. Well, I mean, the answer is like, I'm still obviously De Leon is probably my most principal of my principal theorist for socialist organization, but obviously like he fucking died in 1914. It just calling yourself a De Leonist in 2020 makes absolutely no sense. Even though, yeah, again, De Leon is still probably one of my most principal theorists, but he's still, even after the channel makeover, he's still the avatar of this channel. But to go into like why De Leon used democratic rhetoric, it was because at that time, sort of the late 1800s and early 1900s, the sort of like general consensus regarding liberalism was very much in line with the Chartist movements of like 1848, and sort of the popular democratic revolutions of 1848. So it just made, for propaganda purposes, it just made sense to appeal to democracy because it was in the popular conscious. So, but I mean, in reality, if you look at what De Leon advocated for, the socialist industrial unionist system, it's just a centralized federation of industrial syndicates. It's not really a it's not like a popular democracy. It's clearly just, it has democratic elements, no doubt, but it's not, I guess, a popular democracy. It would be more accurately described as a centralized federation of industrial syndicates. Which, of course, is, yeah, I mean, is it, in a way, sense democratic? Sure. But, again, basically my point was don't fetishize democracy, and democracy as a principle isn't really relevant to socialism. Yeah.